Transition partners take mental health very seriously. We are now supporting Claro Mental Health Charity, who are local and based in Harrogate. We are working closely with Richard Kenny, who is the IT director at TechBuyer. Claro operates as a commercial workshop making goods for businesses, which enable those with long-term mental health conditions to function in a voluntary real work environment. We would love it if you can join us in supporting this amazing cause and charity and donate what you can. Any amount would be greatly appreciated. Thank you very much, and thanks to all our listeners.
Hi, this is the Let's Talk Leadership podcast. My name's Elly Greening.
And my name's Sandra Stewart.
On this podcast, we will be interviewing some of the UK's greatest tech leaders. We'll be discussing war stories, battle scars, and their learnings from their journeys.
Hopefully, you will pick up some great tips, learn from others' experiences, and have a good laugh along the way.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Let's Talk Leadership podcast. So it's a fantastic sunny day here in Leeds, and we're super excited to interview our next guest. So we've got Dmitry Muzhikov on the podcast, who is the Chief Product Officer at Alteos. Dmitry is an experienced product leader working mainly within the fintech and insurtech space for well-known startups such as Koya, Credit, and is currently working at Alteos, as mentioned, where he's helping their investor AXA to further build on its reputation as one of the fastest and most innovative players among major insurance companies. Dmitry's expertise lie with building and growing new technology products, and he also has multiple years leadership experience within this space to share with us today. So we cannot wait to hear all about your experience. Hello, Dmitry.
Hi.
Hi, Dmitry.
Hi.
How are you? You okay, Dmitry?
Very good. Thanks. How about you?
Good. Yeah, and it looks nice and sunny in Berlin as well today.
Yeah, it is. Still feels like end of summer. So it's...
Oh, nice. It's not quite that. It's sunny today, but it's not particularly warm. Sounds nice. Fantastic. Well, it's great to have you on the show. I always start the show with just setting the scene and a little bit context for the listeners and viewers. So it'd be great if we could start us off with telling us a bit more about you, your journey, how you got into tech, and more importantly, how you got to where you are today.
Sure. Just to start with, I actually have a very weird habit. I always start my stories from the current to the past. So this time,
you go the other way to us.
this time I'm going to do traditional way.
Oh, okay.
Probably in years of it. So we can call it a tech journey. Let's put it like this. So it started more or less from the high school when I was in 8th grade. So more or less the first time I saw the internet or got access to the internet, I was like, okay, how is it built? And more or less all the time until I graduated from the school, I was engaged in different website building, HTML coding, and just trying to figure out how it's done. Unfortunately, there were not so many, resources. There were some basic books, how it's done. And then you reach certain level and then you don't know okay, which book I should buy now? Okay. And then I bought I remember Apache servers book. Okay. Is it useful now? No, probably not. So it was really, really hard to progress back to base in time, and you just can only rely on trying certain things and so on. So that makes it interest started a long time ago, 20 years ago or so. And however, over time, by the end of the high school, I kind of really didn't see myself as purely in any engineering or informatics or this kind of studies for my bachelor and tutor. And I thought, okay, so I like technologies, but just to make technology work, probably it should be business. So you need to understand the business to understand if you can apply certain technology. And I got a very general international business degree in Russia. It was in St. Petersburg, finished in 2008. Yeah, 2008. Then was a couple of early starting works, mostly in BizDev area. And was around 2 years or so. And then at a certain point, I just realized that, okay, I have still tech interest and I kind of like technology. What I'm doing now in no way lead me anywhere closer to the tech, because I'm shifting towards more like just traditional sort of business. And I thought, okay, what could be like the jump start? How can I push myself a little bit out of the circle that I am now? And I thought, okay, probably a good idea would be just to go and get maybe just try to get some degree in some other country. And that's how I ended up in Singapore in, oh God, when was that? I think it was 2010 or 11.
Fantastic.
And applied for the MBA, improved my English skills a little bit, I passed all the tests, and yeah, basically spent 2 years studying in Singapore. And that's where I started again, getting closer with all the projects, with all the interest again back to tech. And that's where we started our, we can call it startup, but like an attempt of startup, let's say. So we built.
Sorry, Dmitry, just going back to your MBA, because you said it was in Singapore, but it was through the University of Bradford, wasn't it?
Correct. Yeah, they have a campus.
Yeah, because I saw that. That's where Sandra's from.
Yeah.
That's where you were, Sandra was born. I thought that's so weird.
Yeah, so they have a campus in Singapore, and there was an option also to go to the UK, but actually I really want to stay in Asia at that point of time.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, but actually now I would probably spend also some time in the UK. But back to the days, I kind of got really impressed by the way things are done there, by business, by opportunities, and just.
I saw it on your LinkedIn. I thought, what a small world that we're ringing from Leeds, obviously right near Bradford. Sandra's from Bradford originally, and that's where you did your master's through the University of Bradford.
Yeah, now they actually do a lot in online. I think they're just one of the, among the first in online MBAs. I don't know how it works. For me, it was important to be in place and just to be as much in the topic as possible. So now things work a little bit differently.
Wow. Yeah. So you were saying, apologies, that's when it started your startup life then?
Yeah, the startup life. So my idea first, we wanted to build, just a long time ago, young guys. So we're going to all the restaurants and cafes, and they always had this, like mostly small cafes, some stamp cards. When you put stamps and then you collect 10, and then you get free stuff in the subway or something like that. Yeah. So, okay, let's actually put it in the app. And so we pulled things together, found with a friend of mine, outsourced more or less design, development works. We put the first prototype, found the first partner, and we kind of built two sites. One site is a user-facing site where you just collect stamps and so on. But for the companies itself, the idea was to create certain CRM where they can see which profile of the people using the services, and eventually create certain campaigns for them as special offers. Although back to the days there were no GDPR, so
marketing was a bit more simple.
A little bit more naive way, and yeah. So yeah, we kind of bootstrapped it in the very beginning, and then we thought, okay, what do we need to do now? Of course, we need to find an investor. So, and started just blindly sending stuff, and to people we know, to people we don't know, to certain like connections of connections and so on. And eventually talked to a couple of funds. There was no much success with one, although with one fund there was like almost later stage, but also didn't really work out. But the way it turned out, actually, that I ended up starting working in one of the funds I talked with. So, and then I kind of more or less thought, right, okay, it doesn't work. We don't have any money to do it anymore. We can find investment fund, but these guys, they have pretty cool idea and vision. So, and they invited me, and that's how my VC career started. Like this. The fund was just about to start, so it was like nothing really. It just was an idea, and we kind of more or less talked to them as one of the first startups. So the focus of the fund was purely on fintech. That was like what made it special. So that's generally the entry to the fintech area.
Yeah.
And so it started in Singapore, but then eventually the main office was in Moscow. So moved from Singapore to Moscow. It's already was half a year after I finished all the studies, and worked there for 2 years in the fund. So with the fund, we quickly realized that actually there are not so many interesting opportunities in Russia, And back to the days, I'm pretty sure we were the first who used the word fintech even in the market.
Oh, wow.
Cool.
I mean, in the Russian market, obviously. And we quickly switched focus from the Russian market to US, UK, and lately a little bit to Asia. So it started with building like network of the like different companies who also invested in fintech. We had eventually made a couple of co-investments with a couple of UK funds, invested in a few US companies, and somehow focus always laid on the mostly digital and mobile banking. So that was the main area and the expertise. Also, we published a lot of different research and like nicely designed and like looked like a fancy magazine that was actually promoting the fund very well, and people were getting to know us, and that's more or less how the connections were built. My focus was mostly in understanding the business, how it's built, what is it, what's the setup, what's the team, what's the idea, and everything but actual financial due diligence, more or less on the team technology setup.
And at what point did you move to Germany? And then, because obviously you were involved in startups such as Koya and Credit.
So it flows very, same way, more or less, how I ended up in the VC.
Okay.
One of the companies we talked with back to the days was Creditec from Germany. So we had a tour in Germany where we talked with multiple, more or less famous fintechs back to the days. One was Lendico. I think you had the guy from Lendico with you.
Yes, we did. Yeah, Siddharth.
We love Sid from Lendico.
Yeah, so the market is very small. People still same people. Yeah, and Creditec was also one of those companies, and we didn't end up investing in them back to the days. But then we stayed in touch, and in roughly a few months, they said, okay, we kind of have one idea here, and it was like, I'll tell a bit more later on, but it's mostly in the area of digital banking again, and knew that I've been engaged a lot on that stuff. So we talked once, twice, 3 times, and eventually it ended up in me being in Hamburg as the first place in Germany.
Yeah.
That's how it started with German markets. So
cool.
Creditec, I don't know how much you know, but it used to be a very famous startup in Germany. It was the most funded fintech company back to the days.
Wow.
It went bankrupt last week, I think, but I mean,
oh gosh,
it was in 2014. It was really like everyone knew about it here, and the core business of the company was in consumer lending in different various products in 7 different countries. Except Germany, of course. So the office was in Germany, but the core business was in different countries: Spain, Mexico, Poland, Russia, and other countries. And the core business was lending, and my goal was to build the digital banking solution that would serve as the main mean to get quickly put the money that I issued after the successful credit scoring decision straight to the bank account or to our own card, so customers can start using it immediately using either plastic card or virtual card.
Yeah.
So, and we built like a company within the company, because the business was very different from the main business from the regulatory point of view, and we tried to find a setup that would help us to issue the cards and accounts straight away to multiple countries. So we registered the separate entity. It was a lot of playing back and forth whether we should go with our own license, whether we should acquire something, whether we should get this or that license. Eventually, we found a partner who helped us to set up the whole banking infrastructure. And launched in a couple of countries to start with. And it was generally Creditec was one of the most exciting journeys, because I met a lot of people I know now. They're all still here, most of them in Berlin.
Oh, that's nice.
Hamburg.
What was, sorry, I'm just going to ask you, before, I know we've got a bit more to go on to, but I think just since that, obviously this is a leadership show and podcast all about leadership, it'd be really interesting to hear. You've obviously been involved in so many VC startups, etc. It'd be really interesting to hear what a leadership point of view, what your kind of main learnings have been along the way that you might be able to share with others that are interested in, maybe going in, sort of moving into the same footsteps as you and developing, building their career within the startup and VC world?
Well, I mean, it was very interesting learning generally, should we talk about the current more or less view, or basically what I learned mostly being in VC, or
what you think's most valuable to share with others would be really good.
I think that what I learned, since I didn't really work anywhere except Russia before 2010, and before the actual international exposure, let's say, to the US and to the UK, so in Russia nobody really talked about leadership that much. That was the first interesting finding. So by talking to other companies, or to companies in the US, in the UK, in Asia, I found how more they emphasize on the culture and actual leadership. So how different is that? So that's more or less when I started to realize that the company culture has much greater importance than I thought before. That also includes the leadership style of the leaders and the founders and the seniors. So, but I would make sure to mention the leadership style maybe a little bit later on, because I think it's worth also mention a couple of other journeys, if we're still in time for that, or I was still good.
Yeah, no, we'd love to hear.
Yeah.
Love to hear about this.
Then after Creditec, I joined Koya. Koya is currently one of the most also known insurtechs in Europe. So it's a fully licensed insurance company. I started there from basically day one. And we started slightly building the team, just starting again.
So there was no employees, there was just you, the founders.
Yeah, that's more or less all the same, because in Creditec there was a lot of employees, but we started separate entity. My team was sitting separately, totally independent, everything. So it's somehow always worked with, okay, there is nothing, let's do something here. So, and
that's cool.
Over the last 3 journeys. And same for Koya. And I knew founder of Koya from Creditec. He was, I think, first employee in Creditec.
Oh, right. Okay, cool.
That's how we got to know each other. And we had lots of things in common. We saw things in the same way, and that's more or less where we, decided let's try to do something. And it grew pretty fast and pretty big, although it was a really tough journey, because we decided to go straight for the license and to acquire the license for the just young startups straight away without having just young guys. Doesn't work. So we had to build a proper team set up with people who have a lot of experience in insurance, who can be credible for financial.
I think I just lost you there.
So it was a lot of fun. And Koya and Alteos itself. So Koya's business was mostly in B2C, so the different insurance products, done a little bit much more in a user-friendly way, and thinking about more about a younger generation, let's say, but focusing on the B2C area. So we built, the team now, it's around 80 people. I'm not there since already a long time, but the company is doing well and still pretty well known, but it's a long way. Yeah. And
that's awesome.
Unfortunately, at certain point of time, I would say our view of certain things didn't match. We can put it this way. And that's more or less how I ended up in Alteos. It was not overnight, obviously it was a long process in between. And we were reached directly by AXA, Germany. That was a surprise. And first they found CEO, our current CEO, who then found me, and then we found CTO. And at that point of time, there was just the idea, okay, we're a big insurance company, everyone knows us, we want to do something in InsurTech. There was no specific idea that they wanted to emphasize on. Basically, they trusted us to come up with a list of ideas and then just together to choose one.
Wow, that's really cool. So the whole creation, everything, you've been involved in the whole process.
Yeah, and I thought, how awesome is that? Basically, just have a full trust. You can just suggest and try certain things. So we came up with a list of 12 ideas. We really liked some of them, very, very traditional insurance specific. Some of them were with certain very different consumer business, but having insurance as a certain element of that, because there was no strict restriction. Let's do just insurance. So,
yeah.
And we had a presentation with them in the head office in Cologne, in Köln. And we were basically, obviously, we had the idea we liked the most, and we were going through ideas. Some ideas nobody really paid attention. Some ideas there were like a little bit of discussion. And by the time we reached the idea of having, we call it insurance as a service, or insurance that helps to quickly onboard partners and sell insurance through partnerships, we could see a real engagement and interest from the participants, and there were like pretty interesting people. There were a couple of board members of AXA Germany and heads of different business lines, so they really knew what goes well, what's interesting in the market, and so on. And that's how the direction actually established. What we do in Alteos is more or less we do B2B2C business, where we sell insurance products through partner distribution. So that was our goal from day one. We never wanted to establish like a really big brand, and we're still not doing this. So that's why maybe there is not so much information in terms of the news of PR, because actually there is no interest for us to do PR. And the core asset, I would say, like when we started, again, there started three of us, as always. And we thought, okay, now I had already a little bit of experience in insurance, and basically I knew a little bit of the software that has to be first built to start selling. And we thought, okay, should we go for some software provider, or should we build it ourselves? And there was a lot of plan back and forth, and like talking to huge US providers. And by those talks, we actually realized that we can create a lot of dependency if you go with one of the big providers, and it can be very expensive, probably maybe not flexible enough. So we decided to build all the backend ourselves. So it's so-called core insurance system that manages everything that comes to insurance policy and any user-related or policyholder-related relationships. So the core asset of the company, basically the system itself. I'll talk a bit about the team later on now. And the competitive advantage is for us that basically we can start any new insurance product for any partner within 1 day, versus sometimes half a year for the big insurance companies. And one of the reasons we can do it is basically in the system we built, because it's extremely flexible, extremely configurable, and it doesn't require any engineering work anymore. So the way it's built, it's just pure configuration that can be done by almost any business person with a little bit of training, and that makes us very fast, and that also helps us to serve at the same time big companies, but also very small companies. So we can have thousands, and we actually have thousands of small companies client, and each of them can sell, one insurance a week, but then altogether it creates a big portfolio and big revenues.
It's really It's quite similar. We've actually got a client in the UK called Convey Digital, and they do a lot on insurance as a service.
Yeah, well, we focused only in Germany now, and that's actually also, very. This journey is very different from the journeys I had before, because all the companies before were VC-funded companies, and here we are more or less. We have one investor, that is AXA, so it's not a VC game at all. That brings very different KPIs and metrics on the table.
So how many of you are there now? Because you said you started with 3.
I think we're around 47 or 45 people now.
Okay, cool, fantastic.
Just a bit about this KPI. So for us, the most important part was just to build an efficient company. So it's often in the VC world, and I saw it a lot when I was also in VC, there are lots of, I call it vanity metrics. And vanity metrics, okay, we have many markets now, we hired 300 people, that's our growth. And then for us, actually, the important metric is to hire less people, because otherwise there is no point. We have to show that we can do certain processes that, for example, AXA do, but in a more efficient way. That's the whole point of existence. So
quality and the right people.
Yeah, so I think we're pretty much the size. I don't think it can grow much further. There is no even point in that. If only we need more like manual work on the call center, but we don't really see it right now. Certain work that cannot be really automated or cannot be outsourced. Yeah. But the core team size probably will stay like that. And about the team. So I mentioned we're around 40, 45 people. we do some outsourcing work for certain stuff, and we have our own sales team and sales resources. So we find partners ourselves. We're fully independent from AXA when it comes to that. So AXA more or less acts as a reinsurer in the classical way when they insure our risks, and when they also provide the money, obviously, and give us certain credibility as well as the young company, as the big parent on the background. But we have full flexibility when it comes to the insurance solution, insurance products, and so on. So just the last thing about it, I would say we're pretty lucky also with the people there. It's like AXA people, very flexible, and unlike all the stereotypes about people have working in a huge corporation, they think in a very modern way. They also know all the trends and obviously not know everything. So there we got pretty lucky. Yeah.
Fantastic. Great. Interesting journey. Very exciting. Great that you've moved around so much in Singapore. Wow, absolutely amazing. What would be really interesting to hear more about? Obviously, you've managed and grown different sizes of businesses, different teams, sizes, currently in the 40s. How would you say that your teams would describe your leadership style, and how would you describe your leadership style?
Yeah, that's it's a good question in a way, because what I personally believe, and I hope actually everyone see it like that. So I don't see that you can always use one leadership style for all the situations, because certain situations requires different approach. For example, I would call it an adaptive style, let's put it this way. But it's mostly, I would call it a combination of certain more or less democratic approach, where I'm trying to move myself more now towards the coaching style, where I give a lot of trust to people, and actually that's more or less like a meritocratic concept. However, I just have a certain situations requires to really jump in and be a little bit autocratic in certain decisions, because there can be cases when there is a reputational risk on the company, and you have to solve quick things very quickly, and then sometimes you have to really say what people have to do. But if things are calm and work like in a normal way of life, so it's mostly trust in people. And for me, probably the most important thing that people have to take care about what they do, and if they see that they care, can also have a full trust to them, and they can be fully autonomous.
Yeah, it's nice, I think, from a leadership perspective as well, when you can get to that coaching style rather than autocratic, like you say. It's interesting, you mentioned something earlier about when you were coming from Russia that you hadn't really spoken about leadership before, and it wasn't something that was really mentioned until you moved away. It'd be interesting to see, and I think also the culture piece wasn't something that was a focus, but obviously when you came to Germany, it's so important to get that culture right, particularly with you getting involved in early stage startups. Can you talk to us about that, and how your kind of ideas has changed around culture, and what sort of culture and environment you're trying to create in the startups that you've been involved in?
Yeah, generally, so the first time I faced it was in my studies in the MBA. There was a special even subject on the leadership. So that's more or less where the concept of leadership were explored. But interestingly, it was not so long time ago, right? It was 10 years ago. But back to the days, I don't remember that there was any concept that was focusing on the coaching or something that really people trust driven. So all the styles that were described in the books were pretty much standard, sometimes describing it in a vertical or horizontal leadership, but that's it. There was no those concepts that are popular now back to the 10 years ago. And then more or less when I already worked in Germany, so we had a lot of trainings, first of all, on the leadership trainings, and different coaches who come into us in a different format and so on. That's more or less where, when the more or less understanding came to that you have to really trust people. You cannot, if you say what they do it, but then they will never show any motivation, or they will never do extra step. And the outcome of that it's always negative, because people might be, if you're really autocratic and you just say people how to do, they might be scared to say something. They might be feeling uncomfortable when they're speaking, and no one knows anything. That's the core thing, basically. So you have people just to be able to solve certain situations collectively, and by just being like a straight autocratic leader, you rely on the one person. That contradicts the whole idea of the teamwork, or
kills creation, right? So yeah, it doesn't aspire that collaborative, creative environment, does it? Which is so important and so crucial in these startups. So building out these teams, then you're always like one of the first in there. So attracting talent is a huge part of that, and we all know how competitive it is in the German market, particularly in Berlin. So can you tell us a little bit more about how you've attracted talent and built teams from scratch, and any words of advice you've got for that?
Basically, with all possible means, yeah. But jokes aside, so I think the most important thing, and it also goes in line with generally how I see product management, is that you have to give person certain domain of responsibility that creates the ownership feeling.
Yeah.
So that makes people feel like, okay, that's my own, let's say, small business. That's I'm the boss here, and I can take all the decisions. And I think that motivates people a lot, especially in the product, when there is like a lot of trust and responsibility, and they have multiple various tasks. And also, that's usually how I hire people. So we never hire a person when we don't have an understanding that, okay, there's clearly a domain that person can manage. We can give a full ownership, and then the person can be fully responsible for that. That's more or less it. So, and then also I believe that the atmosphere at work is very important. So we like to have fun. So when I think people like us when they come to interview. We have equal amount of hard work and fun at work, and it's very important. I'm not a big fan of talking about culture itself, although I fully believe it's important. But what I noticed, the more you talk about culture, the more you focus on that, okay, let's set the culture in a company, the more it actually goes against it. And people don't believe it. That was my experience. So somehow...
The people are the culture, aren't they?
Yeah, you can set, let's say, a set of 10 most important values for the company. But then what you have to do, you have
then
to...
you need the right people, don't you? In the culture, it's about involving the people and having the right people and taking you and taking that journey with you. I think, like you say, 100% you can set the values, but the culture, I think, comes on. It's a journey with the people.
Absolutely, but you can just really also bring culture in people if they don't believe in that. So I think the most important thing that we got lucky with is that when you hire people, you can just more or less see already if there will be more or less the fit, right? So, and that's the most important thing in hiring, the cultural fit itself and what drives people.
I'd be interested in learning more about, from a startup point of view, how do you get the people through the door? How do you attract that talent through your door?
Well, that's actually, it's relatively, well, it's not easy, but the best thing what you can do in startup, you can learn much more. First of all, you learn faster, you engage in so many multiple tasks, especially when the team is small. There is one important thing about startup, especially in early stage, there are no areas of, like pure areas of responsibility. Okay, I do only this thing, and that's my thing, and I don't do anything else. So everyone more or less get engaged in various topics. Of course, you have still like the main job that you do, but in order to move fast, to be efficient, you have to be really like engaged and support other people and other members. So that's one thing. So people learn very fast, and almost everyone who I hired always said, when they just joined, especially people from a little bit more traditional companies, they said, okay, in these first months, I learned here more than like in 3 years before in the big company.
Wow. So they're really getting things done and achieving things. So that sense of ownership is so important. What are you passionate about, Dmitry? I'd love to know a little bit more about that. What gets you up in the morning? What are you excited about?
Generally, well, as you can guess, I'm kind of really huge fan of the tech in general. I'm like always.
You're a techie at heart.
As an early adopter, although I don't have a tech degree, but I'm very, very close to engineering now generally. So, and over my career, like I moved from business closer to tech, where now I'm basically like just hugging tech as tight as possible, and
hugging tech as tight as possible.
Like it a lot. I'm very close. So that brings another passion. I really like to be hands-on, but I force myself not to in many cases. So I'm trying to find even tasks that I do myself, like support the team, and just purely because I like doing this itself. Plus, early stage startup doesn't require managers, like a pure managers. Of course, the more you grow, it gets more and more managerial, and now it's already much different from the day we started. And also, that's example of leadership, more or less, like basically leading by doing. That's a very simple thing. So, we do all things together. And apart from that, I'm crazy passionate about the UX and user experience generally. So that was my favorite area. And now I really like how it's evolving from simple, like different random designs towards sophisticated design systems that contain different reusable components, and it's getting more and more interesting over time where this area goes. And that's main thing.
Good. It's nice that you've got that tech passion at heart, but you love leadership, and that's it's nice to have a combination of both. So it sounds like you've got the perfect job with your current role. And we love to finish the podcast with like, what's on your agenda? What are you excited about? What's the plans for the next 12 months? Anything cool that we should know about that you've been up to?
Well, currently, like my main goal generally just to make business profitable as possible as soon as possible.
Your boss will be happy when he listens to this.
I mean, I don't have really boss here. The board should be happy.
The board will be happy.
Itself. Also,
the investor.
I want to really prove that the efficient business can be really built with a small team that just do things right and using the modern tech. Mm-hmm. Although being in a very regulated environment where it's extremely hard to innovate, but still, long term, I still would like to see myself in something that makes a little bit bigger impact, let's say, to people's life in society, because I really love insurance generally, and I think
that's nice.
Would like to see myself in doing something more life-changing in a way.
Yeah, tech for good.
Mm-hmm. Tech for good.
Is there any certain areas like health tech, ed tech? What kind of like where do you see that?
Health tech is very area. Although I know the German market now pretty well, also in health, and the data privacy regulations. Of course, they bring a lot of value, most actually positive things, but it makes certain things almost impossible to build certain meaningful in the area, just to build certain company that use data in the most efficient way, because you just cannot access the data because there is this restriction, that regulation, and so on. But I believe over time it should establish a little bit better, because it's just all this GDPR topics just started a few years ago. People still like don't use it efficiently and like abuse it and so on. So medtech is a very interesting area itself. Yeah.
So wait, watch this space. Dmitry is going to start a really interesting health tech. We're going to keep our eyes peeled for that in the future. Longer term though, AXA, don't worry, you've not lost him yet.
Not yet.
Awesome. It's been great hearing your story, Dmitry, and getting to know you. If anyone's got any questions, are they all right to reach out on LinkedIn, Twitter? What's the best form of contact?
Yeah, LinkedIn is good enough. Yeah.
Awesome. I think you've given some great advice, particularly for anyone looking to scale up their business. So it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Thanks, Dmitry.
Thank you.
Thanks.